All right, hello, and welcome back to the Broken Business Models podcast. We're your hosts, Ryan and James. And before we get into today's podcast, just a quick disclaimer how we start each of these. Nothing in this podcast or any of our other materials should be taken as investment advice. James or I could have positions in any of the stocks that we mention, and we reserve the right to change those positions at any time, with or without disclosure. So make sure you do your own work and always consult with a professional before making any investment decision. With that being said, the topic of today's podcast is going to be MicroStrategy. So we've done a podcast on MicroStrategy before, but in the past several weeks, the stock price of MicroStrategy has run up significantly, appearing to be because of a interview that the CEO recently did. But for those who may not be as caught up on the story of MicroStrategy, we'll just do a quick explanation of what the company is and what it's all about. So there are basically two main things that you have to know about MicroStrategy, and that is their software business and their Bitcoin holdings. So starting off with their software business, the main thing to know about their software business is that it is essentially too small to matter. So in the most recent quarter, they generated about $100 million of revenue, and on that revenue, they incurred a $20 million operating loss, excluding the effect of the change in value of their Bitcoin holdings. So MicroStrategy has a market cap of about $40 billion, so about almost 400 times the quarterly revenue in the most recent quarter, and a completely unprofitable business in their software business. So we can kind of disregard the software business in any valuations of MicroStrategy. But everyone knows that the only reason that anyone buys or invests in MicroStrategy stock is not because of the software business, but instead on MicroStrategy's Bitcoin holdings. So over the past several years, MicroStrategy has built up a stockpile of over 200,000 Bitcoins that cumulatively at today's prices is worth about $15 billion. Based on MicroStrategy's net debt and its current market cap, MicroStrategy costs about $170,000 of market cap per Bitcoin that it holds. Bitcoin's current price is much lower than that, about $67,000 at the time of recording this podcast. And so MicroStrategy is trading at a huge, over 100% premium to its Bitcoin net asset value. So that's basically the gist of what's going on with MicroStrategy. You have a software business that is too small to matter, and Bitcoin holdings, which it is trading at a significant premium to. So with that, I'll kick it over to you, James, to talk about the recent run-up in MicroStrategy stock price and the interview with Mr. Saylor.
All right, thank you. And before we continue with MicroStrategy, just a quick reminder, if for anybody who doesn't already know, we have a website called differentiatedanalytics.com where we offer premium short selling research. So basically, we identify stocks that we believe to be either overvalued or fraudulent, and we identify our best short selling ideas and write professional grade research reports about these companies and explaining why we are bearish. And all of that is available to our premium subscribers on differentiatedanalytics.com. So if you're interested in short selling and want to access premium research, make sure to check out our website. The link and everything is in the description below this video. With that being said, let's get back to MicroStrategy. So as Ryan just explained, MicroStrategy's stock price and their premium to net asset value has increased massively over the past, few weeks. And one of the reasons, if you look at just a few days, as of a few days ago, a huge barrage of bullish articles started popping up across the financial media. So here's a few of them just from last week. So here on Forbes, Michael Saylor reveals shock $100 trillion MicroStrategy endgame as Bitcoin price suddenly soars. MicroStrategy's bold pursuits of a $1 trillion Bitcoin bank valuation. MicroStrategy stock soars 10% as it pursues Bitcoin bank ambitions. MicroStrategy eyes $1 trillion valuation in Bitcoin bank endgame. So, all these media outlets are talking about MicroStrategy becoming a Bitcoin bank. and aiming to achieve a $1 trillion valuation, which is obviously huge. So, what does that even mean? What even is a Bitcoin bank? Well, as it turns out, it basically all comes down to a recent interview that MicroStrategy founder and chairman Michael Saylor did with Bernstein. So Bernstein is one of these it's a brokerage firm, and that they release research reports about stocks that they give to their clients. And one of the stocks that they cover is MicroStrategy. So to write one of these pieces, they interviewed Michael Saylor. And while the Bernstein report is not publicly available, a publication called The Block was able to gain access to this Bernstein report. And they wrote an article that is publicly available, which basically explains what the Bernstein report said and what Michael Saylor told to Bernstein. And this interview that Michael Saylor gave to Bernstein, that's really the genesis and the source of all the hype we've recently been getting about, the $1 trillion valuation and the idea of the Bitcoin bank. So, what exactly did Michael Saylor tell to Bernstein? So here I'm just going to read a bit from the article from The Block. If you want to read the whole article yourself, we've put a link in the description below. So here's what Michael Saylor said. Michael Saylor said that this is the most valuable asset in the world, referring to Bitcoin. The end game is to be the leading Bitcoin bank or merchants bank, or you could call it a Bitcoin finance company. If we end up with $20 billion of convertible bonds, $20 billion of preferred stock, $10 billion of debt, and say $50 billion of some kind of debt instrument and structured investments, we'll have $100 to $150 billion of Bitcoin. So when Michael Saylor talks about becoming a Bitcoin bank, he's using the word bank very loosely, because what he's describing, has nothing to do with being a bank. All he's saying is that their plan is to continue issuing convertible bonds and regular bonds, and preferred stock, and use the proceeds from those issuances to buy more Bitcoin. Now that doesn't make MicroStrategy a bank. Borrowing money to buy Bitcoin, it does not make you a bank. But he's trying to call himself a Bitcoin bank, maybe to sound cooler, or I don't know why he's using this terminology, because it is factually incorrect. What he's describing here is not a bank. All he's saying is that MicroStrategy plans to continue doing what they've already been doing, which is issuing bonds and using those proceeds to buy Bitcoin. So let's read a little bit more of what he's saying. So here he says, the company, MicroStrategy, trades at a 50% premium to net asset value. With more volatility and more annual rate of return, we can build a company that has a 100% premium to $150 billion worth of Bitcoin, and build a $300 to $400 billion company with the biggest option market and biggest equity market. And then we basically start to chew into the fixed income markets, and we just keep buying more Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to go to millions of coin, and then we create a $1 trillion company. So he's basically saying that MicroStrategy's share price is trading at a 50% premium to net asset value. As we will see shortly, that is factually incorrect. The premium to net asset value is way more than 50% right now. So I have no idea why he's saying 50%. But he's saying that he expects he's going to borrow even more money, buy even more Bitcoins. The Bitcoin price is going to surge, and he thinks that the MicroStrategy's premium will also continue to increase, and that's how he gets to his $1 trillion valuation. And then here he continues, my view is that it's much more intelligent to borrow $1 billion from the fixed income market and lend it to Bitcoin at a 50% annual rate of return. So he's saying Michael Saylor's assumption is that the price of Bitcoin will continue increasing at the rate of 50% per year, I guess indefinitely. And so if he can borrow money to buy Bitcoin and the Bitcoin price continues to rise, obviously MicroStrategy in that situation will do well. Obviously, the risk is, what if the Bitcoin price decreases and then MicroStrategy has borrowed a huge amount of money to, so they have a huge amount of debt. And if the value of the Bitcoin decreases, they're going to get a margin call and be liquidated. So what Michael Saylor is talking about is it's not like he has some sophisticated strategy where he's going to become the Bitcoin bank. There is no Bitcoin bank. That's just a word he made up. There's no such thing as a Bitcoin bank. All he's doing is trying to borrow an obscene amount of money and put it into a speculative asset that is Bitcoin. Now, it's possible that he'll continue getting lucky in the future if the Bitcoin price continues to rise, and MicroStrategy will continue increasing in value. But on the flip side, if the price of Bitcoin decreases, the company will be completely screwed because they have borrowed so much money that if the Bitcoin price to buy Bitcoin, if the Bitcoin price decreases, they're not going to have the funds to pay back their debts. And we can see that Bitcoin's premium to net asset value. This is from a website called mstrtracker.com. Now, mstrtracker.com actually underestimates the premium to net asset value because they do not adjust for all the convertible bonds, of which some of them are already in the money. But if we just look at the MSTR trackers, which is already an underestimate, MicroStrategy is currently trading at 2.3 times its net asset value. So that's a 134% premium to net asset value. So yeah, it's already trading currently it's trading at a 134% premium to net asset value. Now, even as of like a month ago, it was already trading at an 80% premium to net asset value, and then that's only been increasing. So Michael Saylor only gave this interview to Bernstein a few days ago, is what it appears like. And yet he's saying the company trades at a 50% premium. Well, this is factually incorrect. The premium has been way bigger than 50%. And as we all about to show, MSTR Tracker, this website that we got this chart from here, actually underestimates the premium, and they even are saying that the premium is well over 100%. Yet Michael Saylor is saying it's only 50%. So why is he saying that? Well, perhaps he's trying to mislead the public into thinking that the premium is smaller than it actually is, and therefore there's more potential for upside. Because if you think that the premium is going to increase, well, it would be better to buy in when the premium is low, hoping that the premium will increase in the future. But if the premium is already very high, well, then there's less opportunity for upside. So the fact that Michael Saylor is trying to downplay the premium, I think, is very sneaky and a very dishonest thing to do, in my opinion, because clearly the premium is much greater than 50%, and the premium cannot go up forever, otherwise it just gets ridiculous. Now, if you've watched our previous videos about MicroStrategy, we have consistently said that it does not make sense in the long run, based on the fundamentals. It does not make sense to invest in MicroStrategy at a premium, because even if you're bullish on Bitcoin, you are better off just buying Bitcoin directly, especially now that we have the Bitcoin ETFs, which have been approved on the New York Stock Exchange. Well, you're much better off just buying the Bitcoin ETF instead of buying MicroStrategy. With that being said, the fact that MicroStrategy trades at such a massive premium to net asset value indicates that there are indeed a lot of people who take a different view and actually prefer to invest in MicroStrategy stock. So it's worthwhile trying to look at the other side of the argument and see what the MicroStrategy bulls are saying. And the best place to find that is on the subreddit r/MSTR, where just a bunch of people, mostly bulls, talking about the stock. So this is from a few months ago. Somebody asks the subreddit, why would you buy MicroStrategy when you can just buy Bitcoin? And then here is one of the MicroStrategy bulls explaining. So the first two arguments are kind of BS, but then the third argument, he says, they received $1 billion of whatever for under 1% interest. And it's a reasonable timeline that takes Bitcoin deep into the historical bull market. So he's saying that MicroStrategy can borrow, billions of dollars at a 1% interest rate and use that to invest in Bitcoin. As an individual, you do not have the ability, if you try to borrow margin from your broker, they're going to charge you a lot more than 1%. So he's saying it's actually better to invest in MicroStrategy because they can, borrow money at more favorable terms to buy more Bitcoin. However, what people like this guy don't understand is that the only reason MicroStrategy can borrow money at such low interest rates is because the bonds are convertible. They can convert into stock at a certain strike price. And here I have this spreadsheet that shows all of MicroStrategy's outstanding convertible bonds. And two of them are already, these two that I've highlighted here, are already in the money. So these bonds, this 2027 bond and 2030 bond, they have strike prices of $143 and $150. MicroStrategy's share price, as of the time of making MicroStrategy's share price, as of the time of making this video, is $193. So these two bonds are in the money, and we can expect that they will be converted into stock at these strike prices. Now that is dilutive because MicroStrategy is going to have to issue stock at below the current price, which will increase the share count and dilute existing shareholders. So yeah, while they were able to, borrow at just 1%, it actually ends up being way more expensive because as the stock price increases, these converts and this causes dilution, which actually ends up being way more costly to the existing shareholders who get diluted. So basically, these people who are talking about how, MicroStrategy is so great because they can borrow money at such cheap interest rates, they do not understand the fact that these bonds are convertible. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video. As always, if you have any opinions or thoughts about MicroStrategy or Bitcoin, please let us know in the comments section below. And as always, we will see you on next week's video.